Hey you guys, keeping on the theme of the previous two videos, I decided to go ahead and react to a Pixies, since we did 100 Gex and Sleigh Bells, and I was just talking about the history of alternative music in the previous videos. So I decided, why not just dive into a fitting name, Debaser? Because I think that's exactly what the alternative mission is to be a debaser, right? To do something that just throws everything out the window and just debases the mainstream. So let's listen to that. We'll talk through this ad. Sorry about that. I guess it's one note would be that it's easy to kind of forget what was mainstream at that time because this sound became like really popularized by like Nirvana, and then the indie movement, especially the indie rock movement, really absorbed it really well. So it's kind of easy to forget how much of a debaser this was at the time during the 80s hair metal craze. And what else was going on in the 80s? Synth music, lots of synth music. I think the only guitar music that was popular at the time was like Poison, which I actually think is great. I think that's the beginning of pop punk. Shoot me. But it still nevertheless was a way different sound and a way more polished sound. And they managed to take what they didn't have and what they were up against and make their strengths out of their weaknesses, which I think is really impressive. I think that, like I said in the previous video, sometimes creativity comes from adversity, and I guess some of those underground bands doing something that you've never heard before at the time, usually when it works, it's because they're doing that. I love Kim Deal, man. She had so much to the band by, rather than it just always being a kind of crazy, angry, screaming voice, to adding that debaser, just kind of like, just adding this weird arty element that sounds like it's from like I don't know, like some sort of art film. It really adds a lot to their music, and her bass lines are great. I think, another note is just that Doolittle was put out on 4AD Records, which now is pretty big in the indie scene, but at that time it was a no-name record label. So it just shows, they weren't signed to anything big, but they made something with it, and everything they did was really, really out there at the time. I would say another thing that I've noticed in common with these bands as I'm listening to them back to back is that all of them have a sense of humor. I think that that's something that they really ride on. All of them have something kind of quirky and strange, and they have a total acceptance of the quirky strangeness of it, and even make it into kind of like, look at me, I'm a freak, kind of funny. Which is probably a great way to handle it, considering that you're up against titans of industry and money, and you're kind of at the gunfight with a knife, and you have to somehow survive. And I guess the way that you survive is partly making fun of the fact that you're at the gunfight with a knife. But there's a million tools in their toolboxes, and it really made them have to stand out, because you can't just The other thing that you see a lot now is like people think they're alternative if they copy what an alternative band just did. It's like, no, that's not how the Pixies were. And that's something to remember, is like they were different than anything that had happened before that. And same with 100 Gex or Sleigh Bells. I mean, it was different and it was weird and it stood out, and that's why it caught. But it doesn't mean that if you just copy them, then you're kind of becoming what they were up against, especially if you do it with a lot of funding. So what's really admirable to me about these bands is that they overcame the adversity and came up with something new. It's not necessarily like if you repeat what they did that it would be great, you know? It's kind of that they did it at a time when nobody had done it, which is really hard, and it's true genius. And to do it again, you're just copying it, if that makes sense. That's just my opinion. These low funding videos, man, again, just breed creativity. It's so strange. And they used what they had, and they did some really weird arty shit. And they didn't have all the special effects back then at easy access for everybody, so they had to get weird with the camera work and everything. It's kind of impressive, really. And the video holds up as being really weird and interesting. Of course, the lyrics are kind of interesting too, talking about Shannon and Lucia, right? And he made some French foreign film that was about chopping up eyeballs. It's a kind of interesting, thing where they're kind of making fun of this strange art film that they watched and turning it into a song. Very Blink-182 of them to just kind of, be like, whatever, like, we saw this video, it was fucking weird, let's make a song out of it. I want to be like that guy, I want to be a fucking freak. And I want to make something weird that makes people go, what? That was not a usual guitar solo at the time either, if you think about it. Like, if you listen to the music from the 80s, it's like Van Halen. And instead this guy's like, down, 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 with like a bad guitar tone. I mean, it's hilarious, man. It's awesome. Well, maybe now that we've done these three, we'll go all the way back and do the original Debaser, which to me will probably always go to Velvet Underground and the good old king Lou Reed. I think you could argue that there's been other Debasers before him, obviously, that weren't recorded. And maybe some that were, like, if you're really a hipster about it, were even before Velvet Underground that were recorded. But I think they were the original really freak band, especially with Andy Warhol behind them. So that'll be my next video. Go ahead and like and subscribe below if you're enjoying the content. Thanks for tuning in.